Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode. I have a beautiful guest with me today, and I'm just excited to bring some more wonderful experience and knowledge to the space for all of the listeners. I have Heather Good, who is right now based in beautiful Canmore, Alberta, in the mountains, and she holds also an incredible online space for people to be able to work with her. And yeah, so she's also really into beautiful groups and destination retreats, bringing her shamanism and her hypnosis to the journeys, her one-to-one yoga and her therapy in that, and the breath work. She's a beautiful lover of the water and the sun and the energy of the earth, and bringing that into her realm, into her work. Super passionate about supporting women who are facing burnout, exhaustion, just overwhelming life. And so holding that space is really, really special and sacred. And a lot of us are facing that in our lives. And so just helping people and nourishing them through that suffering and through that, that wall that we hit sometimes and we don't know which way to go. So I'm going to allow Heather to kind of jump in and just give us a bit more details on kind of, this beautiful vision that she has in her work and in her own life, and how she has come to where she is in her offerings and her space and her inspiration. So welcome, Heather. It's lovely to have you here.
Yeah, so nice to see you. So nice
Oh,
that, we've been connected for many years, and it's
yeah,
so nice to see also what you're doing in the space too of creating
yeah,
retreats and whatnot. So it's good to be here today and
yeah.
connect. And, I just wanted to start with a little story that I, just kind of came across today, and I thought, yeah, this is what the work's about. And so I'm on a platform so I have a master's in social work and I've worked in counseling, mental health for many, many years with a focus on hypnosis, as you mentioned. And in this group this morning, some ladies were talking about feeling burnt out, feeling exhausted, feeling like, what should they do? And it really brought back a flashback to around 2012 when I was struggling with some significant burnout, had chronic pain for probably about 3 or 4 years as a result of a concussion. I hit heads with somebody else playing soccer some years before, and that manifested many years later. And so then the chronic pain I navigated for many years, which I no longer have, and the burnout and the exhaustion, and what I want to call it adrenal fatigue. As I
Mhm.
read this post by these women, I was like, oh, like listen to your higher self. That's what I
Yes.
wanted to say. And I feel even kind of emotional as say those words because I think we're so disconnected from our higher selves that we really need guidance to get back to our higher self. And um, all the advice in the group was, well, just see 4 people a day. Like just take Fridays off. Just like, take port four notes. It's like, no, like it's like that could help, but it's so much deeper than that. And as women, as helpers, especially as therapists, like that's really what I'm passionate about is helping people who have gotten away from trusting themselves. So this
Yeah.
is someone seeking, like, give me advice. What should I do? But the remedy for each of us is very different about
Yes.
what we need to do to heal,
Yeah.
right? Like you've probably had that experience too. Is that, you know?
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful because a lot of my kind of big thing is disconnecting to reconnect and taking ourselves from all of these, we're so overconnected in this world in a way that has taken us from that deep soulful connection within. And we are facing, I mean, I've faced many of the same things as you, and I'm like, well, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out, I've hit adrenal fatigue, I've done all those things. And it was really going back to nature for me, going back to the basics, going back to where we come from. And then, like you said, each plan is so individual, and it's not a big blanket that can fit just one person. We
Mhm.
have this beautiful toolkit, and it can be evolving and revolving all around, and you can add new things. Whether it's breath work, it's the pause, it's the, put your schedule over there, don't do a 0.4, take a vacation with a purpose and an intention. And I love how, I think for all of us in the helping field, we have been through something that has brought us to where we are, and that
Mhm.
awareness and knowledge to be able to, hold space and to nurture and to, bring people to that. And I know you've had a beautiful retreat in Mexico, and I know it was extremely impactful. Um, and that's different than just the one-to-one. So what is the retreats? What are they offering people that is different than just a one-day group or that one-to-one space that you have as well?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just segue a little bit
Yeah.
to what the different offerings are so then we can see the progression because not everybody can take off and go to
Yeah,
Mexico for these
exactly. Yeah.
beautiful offerings that you're doing,
Yeah.
you know, as well. So just what kind of I think about is I want to kind of introduce the listeners to two different really powerful modalities of helping one get connected with oneself. And those are the practices that I've been most fortunate to learn through my teacher in the States. Her name is Dr. Isa Gucciardi, and um, she has a center called the Foundation of the Sacred Stream, and it's a center for teaching about what's called depth hypnosis, applied shamanism, energy medicine, aspects of Buddhism, and it's really about helping us connect in to the wise part within us. You know, often when we talk about shamanism or applied energy medicine or that sort of thing, when we connect to internal guidance, we find out what our specific remedy is. And I bring that to the individual, the small group work, the day retreats, and then the full bigger retreats is
Yeah.
connecting through a almost like a guided meditation, but it takes you into a state of hypnosis in the way, and people are sometimes scared about the word hypnosis, but they
Yeah.
think they're out of control. But if you think about this more like a guided meditation, where you connect in to maybe an aspect of nature or a place that's very healing, and
Mhm.
in your day-to-day life, you can go back and reconnect to that feeling and that energy, and that will resource you and give you support and healing. And that's now what I do daily is the connecting in with the wise guide within. So even before I meet with a client, I'll do a little meditation. What might that client be needing today? And then they come and see me, they tell me what the issue is, and then I confirm, oh, maybe they're needing the thing that I have the guidance around. So it's a way of connecting in with my higher self and supporting my clients in that way so that they also learn how to connect in with their higher selves and get the healing that's needed, the clearing that's needed. So many of our issues actually originate between the ages 0 and 10. So if we have a trigger now, we just think, oh, it's that person, and we project all over the place, right? And if we can actually go in and notice the feeling in the body when we have this trigger, and then with guidance, learn about what that is, transmute it, transform it, and then release it, then we can put whatever might have been put onto us when we were young that wasn't ours, or we might find that this was some negative energy we took from a boyfriend or was given that wasn't ours. We give that back, and then we have more sense of our own energy cycling properly. So those are the practices that I do daily with my clients through depth hypnosis and applied shamanic journeying to help release energies that just are not, they might not be yours. And then it opens the freedom and the clarity to find out what you do need to do. So does that kind
Beautiful.
of answer your question?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful because it's really, we are carrying so many things that are not ours to carry, or even if you're stripping back to looking at, the energy and experiences and belief systems and all those things that we were kind of, we went through or we were given, and we're packing them like a warrior, which, we end up at that point of exhaustion and burnout because we've been trying to, be all the things and do all the things. And just lugging along that backpack or that red wagon and going, I can, warrior through this. And your body's going, actually, no, you can't. I'm
Mm,
gonna, there's gonna be some pain, or there's gonna be, things that are coming through as, little whispers, and sometimes will become louder. Right. And
mm,
what I love too is that you've, taken some very traditional therapy and also incorporated now this beautiful holistic lens and this gorgeous mix of all of these beautiful tools that you've, kind of put into your space for your clients. And I love that, because I really feel on my side, and I don't know if you feel the same, but healing is not linear. It doesn't
mm,
happen in a very linear, structured way. It's so much more than that. And when we tap into, that essence and the energy and, the world and all the things, it's just so much bigger than
mm.
we even realize, I think, half the time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I definitely agree. And I think that there is a role for, we call it a traditional therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
CBT. The type of therapy that I sometimes use is acceptance and commitment therapy. The acronym is called ACT. I
Okay.
integrated some of the ACT therapy into the retreat in Mexico that I recently ran, and it was like, what are you moving towards in your life? Like, what do you want more of? Who do you want
Yeah.
to, what's the person you want to be, and how do you want to be in your in life? And what are you moving away from? So it might be like overdoing, stressing, anger, irritation. And what are the
Yes.
things, what are the tools and habits that you can integrate into your life that move you towards the life you want to have and the person you want to be? And what are the habits that take you away from the person you want to be? So we integrated that throughout the week around looking at habits and changes and your vision of who you want to be. And so it was an opportunity like in the week as well to practice, you know. If
Yeah.
you have a tendency to do everything and you're like, I don't want to miss out, but you could notice, oh, there's a part of you that's wise, that's saying, you know what, I need to rest right now. Then you've had that opportunity to lean into that wisdom and practice that good
Mhm.
self-care.
Do you find, as you're witnessing people going through those transitions, there is that struggle until they really are open to going, it's okay to rest. It's okay to sit on the beach with my feet in the sand for a little bit longer, or, have my morning coffee off by myself. What do you see as they kind of, you can see them getting there, but it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's an anticipation
Yeah.
or a fear around, it's FOMO, really, right? But then you're stripping that back and going, it's okay, you're giving a permission.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I integrated in I have the two therapists I work with are based in what we call internal family systems therapy, which many of your listeners may know about.
Yeah.
So we integrate in the internal family systems into the retreats as well, and I integrate that into my one-on-one and group work too, because then we look at the part that's afraid of missing out, and we like honor it, and we like, that's hard to miss out. So
Yeah.
it's around honoring like all the parts and not pushing through anything and really listening, like deep listening to all of the parts of us. Listening to our highest self and then listening to those little parts that are like, oh, I have something to say here too. And then as we listen to those parts and people become more, we call it more integrated, then they're able to make choices based from, we call it self or your highest self or your wise self.
Yeah.
Around what's going to be most of service.
Mm.
And that model is a really great model because it's not pathologizing. It's like if people haven't heard of internal family systems, it's really about there's a part of us who wants to do A and a part of us wants to eat ice cream, part of us wants to eat, thinks it's a good idea to eat strawberries instead, right? And so it's not that either one is bad. We just notice we actually have two parts of us. And then we
Yeah.
work with those parts to like experiment and learn. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I love that, it for me, right, just listening to your description, it feels very nurturing and safe and expansive altogether. Like, it feels like, if somebody's going to land in that space, whether it's the one-to-one or it's the group or the retreats, that it's like you can just feel your body, just that breath, and going, okay,
Mhm.
I can be me here. I can allow these pieces of me to come forward and to, to be in the space and to be witnessed and to be, honored in my own most authentic way. And sometimes we in life, in our everyday lives, we are not so much in alignment with that. And it's not right or wrong.
Mm,
It's just part of those pieces that were, that's maybe the expectations and,
mhm.
the roles that we're in. So I love that feeling of just, it's like coming home,
Yeah, it
right?
is like coming home. Yeah, and it can
Yeah.
still be uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, it can. Well, it
Yeah,
can. I mean, and
yeah,
I think
yeah.
healing and growth is uncomfortable.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But finding your soul group and your safe space, and when when you see things that come up and feeling that trusting and that knowing of like, yeah, like I'm being pulled to that space. I know it maybe won't be easy, but
Yeah.
I am worthy of this beautiful experience.
Mhm.
And being, I want to be supported by other women, or like knowing that is what you're helping people tap into more too, is that knowing and that understanding and that awareness. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think
yeah,
the awareness is a big piece of like what are you doing kind of unconsciously or subconsciously or or we
yeah,
might say like without awareness,
yeah,
and where can you bring more awareness in for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know through your yoga therapy as well that you're also offering, really helping people with that breath work, and bringing that really is also very helpful to bring people back into their bodies and back into that really grounded place as well. Like, I find going through life sometimes I'm like, oh man, like have I been breathing properly for the last hour? We don't, it's another piece of that self-awareness. We need breath for life. We need breath to move energy. We need breath to do
Mhm.
movement. We need that, right? So how do
Mhm.
you find people as they, really embody that practice as well? Because I know that's a piece of all the things that you do.
Yeah, the piece of and like kind of going back to the retreat, the how I introduced the breath through the retreat was mostly through the practice of Kundalini Yoga, which I've been a yoga therapist for many years, and my specialty is around using breath for well-being and mental health. But in the classes there, it was like kind of a combination of using Kundalini Yoga, which really is called the yoga of awareness. So that yoga fits in super well alignment with this other work I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the breath, it might be like we need to do a bit more, we call it breath of fire to give us more energy, instead of you don't want to have 10 cups of coffee or even two, you can use breath of fire to give you more energy. Or if you notice, like we're looking at kind of how regulated your nervous system is. If you're very agitated and you need calming, then you might engage in like long, deep breathing through just like through your left nostril, like, and that connects to the right hemisphere of the brain and helps us regulate and calm down. Or you might be like, I want to stop like smoking marijuana or cigarettes. And then there's a breath practice that can help with kind of calming and cooling the body through the breath to make a change. So it really, I see it as regulating, but also see it as really connected to the energetics of breath. So I don't call myself a breath practitioner, but more like a Kundalini yoga teacher or yoga therapist for helping people shift energy, which is all these practices that I do are all in
Yes.
alignment with
Yeah.
working to shift my own energy, to help people shift theirs, and with the goal of releasing what's no longer needed so you can release suffering. That's kind of the essence, I would say, of the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find that, as we are war being warriors through all the things, and we're hitting these hard spaces, that we've tucked a lot of things away. We find all the little nooks and crannies and those little trap doors that we put all this stuff. We'll deal with it later, we'll talk about it later. I can't do it right now, I'm too busy. I'm being a wife, a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm working, in executive roles, whatever people are doing. We're just like powering through all this stuff. And so what I feel like, even with that, that breath, and like you said, it's all energy, and we've tucked all that stuff away, it's helping us to open those places and to release that which no
Mhm.
longer serves us.
Mm.
And this combination of all the things that you're doing is very, very important for that. kind of that release and that awakening, that reconnection, that rediscovery, because we're all different in each parts of our lives. I just turned 50 and I'm like, oh, this is a whole new chapter. I don't know much about this one, right? Like it's, and I feel like as people get older, as we age more, we're more able maybe to really dive into that wise wisdom piece, I feel like coming through. I don't know if you notice that, or you see that happening for people. Is it easier as we get older to sit deeper and connect more than, maybe in our
Yeah.
20s?
Well, I think we're actually forced to, if we listen.
Yeah.
There's people that have seen that have been, one person comes to mind. Oh, I was sent to see you. I have to go on a work leave because I freaked out and I don't normally freak out, So I think what happens if, we want to say women between, I want to say 40 to 60, that whole perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, like that range is very long and very wide. But what happens is that if there's something actually not resolved in someone's life, then that trigger will actually show up in this kind of, I want to call it like a menopausal window in order to be healed. So people think, I've got hot flashes because I'm just in menopause, or I've got, like this just because I'm in menopause. I'm like, you know what? If you actually take a minute and go get some support, like, through something like depth hypnosis or, some therapy that really looks at the deep unconscious, more often than not, there is some trauma or series of traumas that actually need to be resolved that are connected to that symptom people are experiencing. And when they go and they work on that symptom, then the symptom will start to resolve and they'll start to feel better and have less symptoms. And I've seen this, and it doesn't mean you're not going to a doctor to look at your hormones or you're not making some changes with your nutrition or your,
Yeah.
taking in alcohol or, like reducing stress or these sorts of things. Like you're making some fundamental changes. But so often I've seen, women who've had some history of abuse or trauma or um, something that's been repressed that hasn't been expressed or released. And that's what's actually been underneath the symptom. So that yeah, this is an invitation. If you're in this category, I am just so, happy to do that work with people to help them release what's in the way, what's in the way of their full health and vitality moving through the life phase because this culture we're in, like you said, right, of like work, 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 do, like run from one thing to the next, is also not in alignment with being a woman like my age is 54. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
Being a woman of this age does not actually align with working from 7 till 6 at night and then coming home and making dinner and like doing all the things. There's
Yeah.
actually in so many other cultures, this age is a time of like wisdom and sharing your knowledge
Yes.
and being nurtured as well instead of just this output of energy. There needs to come back this energy to oneself. Otherwise, there'll be this misalignment that will end up causing some issues if they're not happening right now down the road. Yeah.
And it's interesting because the perimenopause, menopausal stuff comes up a lot, and I find a lot of women that are, I'm working with are in that demographic as well that you describe. And it's interesting because I'm like, well, that's funny how this comes up in conversation, but like, energetically speaking, like some people are experiencing all the symptoms. Like I wish I knew at 42 what perimenopause even was. For one, I had no education, no understanding. And I mean, if I knew now, like knowing what I know now, if I knew that, that many years ago, it would have been a very different experience. However, I think I was also meant to go through this experience in the intensity that I was, so that when, I have people landing in my space, I have understanding and awareness, and I do have some tools to help them with. But then, as you're saying, if the hot flashes or the bone aches or the migraines or those things are coming up, there's something far deeper behind all that stuff. So I'm just like, okay, well, sign me up for whatever I need to do, because I'd like to visit these versions of myself where some things were happening that maybe I did suppress and that I don't even know I did.
Mhm.
Right. And, even though I've done a lot of work and I'm doing the work, there's always work to be done.
Yeah.
And, there's always self discovery and self awareness and healing, even in ourselves as we are in the space. And I,
Yeah.
right away, you just gave me permission to, I get emotional, reach out and ask for help.
Mhm.
Right. Like, because you don't.
Yeah.
Ah, there we
Yeah.
go. You don't, because you think, oh,
Mhm.
I'm going to be a warrior. I'm so strong. And if
Yeah.
you've been given that belief growing up, if you have that, mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers that have, I'm strong and I'm resilient and nobody's going to touch me and I'm going to do the things. And you've been given that belief system
Mhm.
and they didn't ask for help and they were whatever, whatever happened, you're really afraid to ask for that because you feel shame or unworthy, or you're just not good enough, or why weren't you a strong enough warrior to get through it. It's
Mhm.
like, wow, it's power,
Mhm.
like a really emotionally powerful space to,
Mhm.
or to look in the mirror at that.
Yeah, and it's really what we'd call in the shamanic world a lineage burden, is that what you're describing? A
Yeah,
lineage burden that through, a shamanic practice could be released back to the ancestors, to the higher self of the ancestors,
yeah,
that we each have the ability to stop these patterns that we carry forward from many generations, that are not in the service of our highest self, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think knowing that that's there and we can do that, we're
Yeah.
allowed to do that, we're invited to do that. And we've chosen the journey that we've chosen for a specific reason. And maybe it is, I think of my two daughters. I'm now in this space where I can heal that lineage back, giving
Mhm.
them the gifts of that healing without them knowing it. And then for them to go forward, however many generations, they can take what I've just done
Mhm.
and go forward so differently.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's
And
so
it's an
beautiful.
honor, right?
Hmm.
I feel like it's an honor. It's not easy to be in this space, to be the one who gets to help, change that generational piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, very interesting space to find yourself in, right? It's
Yeah. 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 It's
yeah,
very beautiful and profound. And sometimes people say, like, what's the kind of line around using practices like shamanism culturally and that sort of thing, and how I've been taught in that way is that it's an earth, I'm connected to an earth-based wisdom. And from the time I was young, I connected with imaginary friends and imaginary energies,
yeah,
and right, we're
yeah,
both like highly sensitive people. So we
yeah,
are already really connected to the earth, environment, energies. And so this form of, we call applied shamanism, is really about connecting with our own internal wisdom and the wisdom of the earth. So we're not appropriating something from another culture, or not, I'm not calling in the directions and that sort of thing. Like I haven't been past that, that baton to work in that way. But through the teachings that I've received, through my teacher who's was raised in Hawaii and in many cultures, and was given this wisdom, just to share. I feel very well prepared to help people with these issues
yeah,
because I've been given the gift of these um, practices and teachings, to share with others.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And you've, it's, I think, really, trusted the journey and, allowed things to unfold, even if it, wasn't comfortable. And you've gone, I can see, I remember when we did, a hypnosis session, I don't even want to say, it's probably at least, I think, turning 40. I want to say
Mhm.
I was turning 40 and we still
Yeah.
owned the business we had here. And I was a real rough crossroad. And, it was very interesting for me to open that door to going, okay, well, hypnosis is interesting. And it was like a deep meditation. And, it was very interesting to meet myself in that space. And that was 10 years ago now. And so, I feel like I would even meet myself so very differently now than I did then. And,
Right.
you were helping me in some shifts that were so massive, and some questioning and some things that were coming forward. And, it was very powerful and very sacred. But I feel like, and I could meet those versions of myself that were wanting to come and give me some
Mhm.
very important knowledge
Mhm.
in that space. And I feel like, and like you said, people look at hypnosis and go, well, like, do you just hypnotize and do weird things? It's like, no, like it is a deep meditation. You're grounded, you're connected to the earth, you're still within. I mean, you were right there with me, just guiding me and gently helping me through all of these pieces and asking the questions. And I mean, I'm sure that's evolved in time too. Um, Meeting and coming home within is what I really remember doing in that
That's so
space.
cool. Yeah, that's so cool that
It's,
you have
yeah,
clear memory of that. And, it
yeah,
really is, not, like you said, not at all like stage show hypnosis. It's really about knowing that as the the participant or the client that you actually still have control to say and do and
yeah,
voice during the process. There's not like you go into some other space and you don't remember everything. You're still very present and very
yeah,
able to say at any point, you know what, this is not feeling comfortable, I'm ready to kind
yeah,
of end. Or so there's really a lot about consent and presence in this space of hypnosis, depth hypnosis.
yeah,
And it really can, I think that's really what we need is we need that consent to heal. Like if we don't give
yeah,
consent, then we're not going to go into any sort of deep process or healing. And yeah, and that's needed, even though, it takes some kind of interest, I would say. I always do a short consultation with people if they have any worry about it before the session so that they know if it's for them or not, right? Like, and I would
yeah,
never ask anyone to be like, yeah, just jump into a session if you have some hesitation.
yeah,
So always a little mini session with people before. So I'm doing that work as well as I'm doing some group workshops and then like online trainings so that people can learn a method themselves to
okay,
take themselves through, a process of looking at your trigger, looking at the response, using their own kind of self-hypnosis process and then coming out the other end. So I'm doing a class on July 4th with another colleague. Her name's Carmen Richardson, and she's a level 3 IFS trained therapist here in Calgary. So we have a July 4th retreat day. And then some follow-up sessions, and then we'll have another program in the fall where people can come and do a day with us, and then a 4-week kind of integration process. So and then just the other two other things that people might be curious about is that Carmen and I are doing a retreat in Costa Rica next March 28th to April 4th. That's already about 70% sold out, so we're very excited. Got a handful of spots left for that one in Costa Rica next year, and then I'm doing another retreat in November in back in Mexico. So. Uh, November 22nd to 29th, an hour from Cabo. So people can reach out to me and just
yeah,
like, hey, what piece of that might be interesting, even with just
yeah,
any questions they have.
yeah.
Right? So,
Which is beautiful, and I love that you offer that discovery. I was just about to ask you the question, so you already just kind of took it right out of the spaces. But it's beautiful because it does give someone that time to go, okay, well, I've listened to Heather, I've kind of see her stuff. I'm intrigued. I would like to learn more and see if it is for me. And
yeah.
giving them permission to say, yeah, it is for me, or no, not right now, or whatever, right? And that's important. I do the same thing. I do it for my retreats or my groups or all that stuff as well, because it's really important that it is aligned.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we aren't in, it's not going to work in the same way, when
Yeah.
if we're out of alignment. So that's
Yeah.
really key. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, you are
Yeah.
doing so many amazing things
Oh,
all over
thank
the place. I love
you.
it. And
Yeah, thanks so much for your
yeah,
excitement inviting me to come here. And I probably should
yeah.
say how to reach me, hey? I like that.
Yeah, I can put that on the end too. Or what is your favorite space for people to reach out? What's the one where you kind of hang out the most?
Yeah, well, email's always good. It's
Yeah.
info, info at, my name, heathergood.ca. Email's always good. Or Instagram, I'm Heather, and there's a Z after my name, Heather's Good.
Okay.
Yeah, Instagram is also pretty,
Okay.
I'm on there a fair amount, so, or Facebook's too.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
really any
All
of
the
those are
things.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Perfect.
just encourage whoever's listening to this, if there's even a little bit of you that's like, oh, I'm kind of curious about that, yeah, just reach out and ask me a question. I'm super happy to just answer any questions that arise, or you want to
Yeah.
do some of your own kind of depth hypnosis, shamanic training, let me know. I can forward you where you can go and do that work
Yeah.
too, or you could do a session and then see if that's for you. So, yeah, there's lots of different ways of being connected. So,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because there's
yeah,
there's going to be many different kinds of questions. We all have different pieces and parts of us that come up as we learn and we listen. And that's
yeah,
one of my biggest passions around doing podcasting and being in this space is that I can share so many different parts and pieces of the energy work and the shamanism and the, therapies and all the things that are available because it is amazing what is out there and
yeah,
available to us. And if we, if we're at all drawn to something, we are giving ourselves permission to learn and also to reach out and go, hey, like I love that. I want to know more. And
yeah,
so I love
yeah,
that. So thank you for
totally.
joining me today in this amazing space. And
My pleasure. And I just
um,
want to end with telling people you're worth it. Like, you don't have to live in suffering. You can live in a space of freedom and joy. And that's, my wish is for everybody to be in that space of just full-hearted wellness.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks for today.
Thank you.
This is a pleasure. And thanks for all the work, beautiful work you're doing in the world too. We
Thank
will
you.
align and have something together too one day, I'm
Oh,
sure.
I feel it. Yep, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I take care.